23rd. I know you're missing the tarantulas, so
yeah,
be a little.
I dreamt about them last night.
Did you?
I did. I dreamt about them, like just grand.
Have you ever seen that 1950s horror movie Tarantula?
Yes,
they become giant. And
I even have a book on. It's a coffee table book on the history of horror movies, and it's in there.
I remember seeing it as a kid on this is an old reference on UHF television, and it was just like, oh my god, like that is like, and I suffered from arachnophobia terribly, so it's like I still really hate them. I have to say.
I think I told you they're gross and scary because they're like very hairy and they're very big, but they're way more afraid of us than we are of them. It's the scorpions that frightened me the most, because I killed 3 of them, and then there was the big brown one that we saw at the end as we were loading up our van. It was underneath one of our tarps, and the brown ones are smaller. The black ones are bigger. I killed 3 black ones, but the brown ones will kill you.
Oh, are they? So I've never encountered scorpions. Are they fast?
They're not as fast as tarantulas.
So you can get them with a shoe.
Can get them. Yeah. And their stinger lays flat unless it feels threatened, and then it sticks up like this. So the 3 that I killed were just kind of sitting there, and then I stomped them. But that brown one, he was ready to duke it out.
My French uncle, was in the French Foreign Legion serving in Algeria. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a huge scorpion on his chest. So his buddy wakes up and sees it, and he's like, "Don't worry, I got you." And he takes his boot and smashes it on his chest so hard that it did kill the scorpion, but it also broke a couple of his ribs. And he was like, "You asshole."
You know what? I would take the broken ribs.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah. Those things scare the daylights out of me.
Well, they're terrifying.
On our first day in Mexico, and I'm sorry to not jump into the news, but our first day in Mexico, they gave us these welcome swag bags, and it had like a water bottle in it and an umbrella for the sun, but it also had it had cream for the mosquitoes. And why am I telling you this? What was in that swag bag that was so important? Oh, I know. They had little flashlights, and we had to carry the flashlights around everywhere we went because it's so dark out there. You can't see the scorpions and the tarantulas, and they come out at night.
Good times in the desert.
I would walk like this with my hand out going down the paths, because every single night the spiders start to make webs across the path. And every night you walk through the webs, and rather than have them hit my face, which they did the first couple nights.
Are those big banana spiders?
Yes, the banana spider. They're as big as your hand.
Yeah, and they make webs that are like 6 feet in diameter.
Yeah, they do.
They're a big thing in the Florida. We talked about the Florida Keys the other day about the deer, and they're all over the place when you go hiking there, and you walk through those giant webs. It's the ultimate creepy crawly.
I hate it.
So, all right, lots to talk about, as you point out, including stuff that we didn't put in the rundown, but we are going to talk about. But stuff in the rundown, we're going to talk about a little bit about the reaction to the giant, massive, hulking ballroom that is basically the same size as the White House.
It's bigger than the White House.
It's crazy. It
is bigger than the freaking White House.
It makes no sense. I mean, there's no sense of proportion. It's actually it's one of the rare times when I think that actually whoever comes in next should just demolish it.
Tear it down. I said the same thing yesterday on another podcast. I hope that whoever happens to find himself as the president next, I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Tears this monstrosity down.
It's just atrocious. Yeah. San Francisco basically, we know California has a law now that says that ICE and other officers have to show their faces and present ID in order to operate in the state of California. The feds were like, well, we're ignoring that because we're the feds and we have the supremacy clause in the Constitution on our side. Anyway, San Francisco, right as the ICE is about to go into San Francisco, they're going to be, the San Francisco DA, Brooke Jenkins, says that she's going to go ahead and arrest ICE officers based on prosecution for excessive force. She has a whole novel theory about how to do this. So that's setting up the stage for a serious showdown between local and federal government. Looks like the Defense Department is moving its boat droning attacks out to the Pacific. Now we're not told what nationality the victims are, although we're, I guess, reduced to guessing on shows like this. So we will do that. And, it was brought up that we forgot to talk about John Bolton. And,
what's wrong with us?
The walrus.
And we should throw John Brennan into that too, because he was the House Judiciary Committee referred him to the Justice Department yesterday for prosecution.
What first?
Yeah, let's do Bolton and Brennan real quickly.
Okay.
And I'm of two minds here. That's actually not true. Well, okay, I'm going to present it as of two minds. John Bolton has been arrested and was arraigned late last week on 18 separate violations of the Espionage Act. 18 violations. That's 180 years in prison that he is facing.
He's in great health, but I doubt he's going to make it.
Yeah, I doubt he's going to make it. And, being an Espionage Act charge, he wouldn't be eligible for a minimum security work camp, unless that was just me, and it may have been just me. So anyway, specifically under the Espionage Act, he is being charged with illegal retention of classified information. Mm-hmm. He's not charged with releasing the classified information. He's charged with retaining it, which is still 180 years
John,
in prison.
Why wasn't he charged with disseminating it when you consider the fact that he saved it for the purpose of writing a memoir?
A book. That's right. Because he argued that he was involved in negotiations with the Publications Review Board for 2 years, and that they finally approved the final version of the memoir that was released. Now, he made changes to the memoir after its approval. So you could argue that should be re-reviewed, but they went for the low-hanging fruit on this. The question is very simple. Did he have classified documents in his possession? Yes or no? And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. The FBI found them and confiscated them. Now, the reason why I think that he's in real trouble, not Donald Trump fake made up trouble, is the U.S. attorney who's prosecuting him in the Federal District of Maryland is a Biden appointee, not a Trump appointee. And if this were political at all, there would have been no arrest and no charge in the first place. I mean, he really did have these documents in his house. He really was not allowed to have these documents in his house. And if I'm looking at it objectively and comparing it to previous cases over the last 20 years where people were charged with illegal retention of classified documents, I'm going to say he gets 2.5 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And how old is Bolton?
He's well into his 70s. He's got to be 76 or 78. I'm gonna look right now.
Is there any? I know federal sentencing guidelines are basically like a Excel spreadsheet, and they're pretty strict.
Yeah, he's 76.
Is there any possibility that he can play the old man card?
No, can't do it.
Can he negotiate? Can he plead down? Can he negotiate and say, I'll tell you stuff you don't know if you?
Yeah. My attorneys taught me that literally everything is open to negotiation. Literally everything.
Except as we know from like whether or not you get sent to a camp versus a prison.
Yeah.
They make a promise that they might not decide, not necessarily.
That's right. And whatever the final deal is has to be approved by the Attorney General. And this Attorney General is weak and can't make a decision like that on her own. And so she's going to bump it up to the president.
Right. Well, I mean, being weak is that's a core feature as far as Trump is concerned. Thank you for the donation from Hef for the dollar, and
thank you.
And the joke: come to beautiful Venezuela for our combat fishing adventure. The fishing is bomb. Wah, wah, wah.
I tell you, Ted, I've got another podcast, Deep Focus, we were talking about before we started, and I have a friend who is a PR person. And he asked me if I would interview this client of his. Well, it turns out the client is one of these guys who was arrested storming the beach in Venezuela. And I said, no, he's not a whistleblower. He's not a truth teller. He's just a paid mercenary who was so stupid to believe that they were going to throw flowers on him when he washed up on the beach in Caracas to overthrow the Maduro government. No, I'm not going to interview your client.
John, I have a question for you. This definitely you of all people should be able to answer fulsomely. Has this kind of like Frederick Forsyth Dogs of War scenario ever worked, where you have like, 100 mercenaries storm a beach or parachute into a godforsaken capital with corrugated tin roofs and topple the government successfully?
No. That's a great question. Ted, when I was in high school, I read this book. It was titled something like How to Overthrow a Government or something like that. And the truth is, you can't just like shoot the leader, right? You have to seize the communications organs of the country. You have to seize the radio and television stations. You have to control the major intersections on the maiden roads.
You have to control the military.
You have to control the military, number one.
Yeah.
So no, this kind of thing never, ever, ever works. Never. But these guys fool themselves into thinking that as soon as they go in and do the initial strike, then the Marines are going to parachute in and everybody's going to live happily ever after. And that never, ever happens.
Why do people not look at history and say, well, this is not a replicable, there's no model to replicate here?
Because most of these guys are knuckle draggers who finished high school and joined the military. And then when they finished their military service, they joined these mercenary, paramilitary Eric Prince kind of groups, thinking that they'd make some money. Well, they're no smarter than they were when they finished high school. They're no more worldly. They don't know any more about history. And
but what about the Eric Princes, of the people who actually finance these operations and conceive of them? I mean, are they idiots too?
No. Eric Prince is very, very intelligent, but for Eric Prince, it's all about the money. So long as the check clears, he's perfectly happy to throw a couple dozen guys into the grinder. It doesn't make any difference to him.
Right. It's sort of like I used to always say about Wall Street. Like, you're a broker, you make a commission if you buy, you make a commission if you sell, you always make money.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Hey, and before we leave the John Bolton issue, we should talk about John Brennan real quickly. Yeah. So day before yesterday, at least 24 different people forwarded to me a link to one of the many articles about John Brennan being referred to the Justice Department. I want to put this into context because I don't want people to get excited. So what this is called a criminal referral or a congressional criminal referral. All it is the chairman of a congressional committee saying, we believe that John Brennan committed a crime when he testified before our committee. So they refer the file to the Justice Department. That does not mean that anybody is going to be prosecuted, investigated, let alone prosecuted.
And there's no obligation on the part of the DOJ to investigate, right?
None. In addition,
it's a tip.
It's a tip. You know what? That's a great way to say it. It's a tip. And in addition to that, the crime that they're accusing him of having committed was contempt of Congress. Specifically, it was lying to Congress. Okay, that's a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. And the maximum sentence for it is 6 months in the local jail. First offenders aren't going to get 6 months in the local jail. It's just not the way real life works. So I was mentioning this to a friend of mine, and he said, well, look at it this way. He said, this may be the first salvo against Brennan. This may just be an indication that the administration really is willing to prosecute him. Remember, when Donald Trump was upset with the CIA's findings in an NIE, a National Intelligence Estimate, saying that, I forget what it said, something about Russia that he disagreed with, he fired everybody that had anything to do with that paper, remember?
Yep.
And Tulsi Gabbard accidentally outed 2 people who were undercover.
Wasn't that about the Hunter Biden laptop?
I can't
There were
remember.
so many of those.
Yeah.
Like basically the weasel words of, it is our general considered opinion that this has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Yes. So many of the people who were fired would have been witnesses against Brennan. Now, if they were federal employees, they would have been compelled to testify against Brennan. Now they're not compelled. And all they have to do, they're unemployed. They don't owe Donald Trump anything. All they have to do is go up to the stand and in answer to every question, say, I don't recall. That's it.
Memory failure is a powerful defense. We are Politics of Heroin 1312 has a question for you, John, from YouTube. Okay. And by the way, YouTubers, the super chats are remonetized, and so if you're so moved and you want to support what John and I are doing, so we can keep doing it, please feel free to do that. John, why, as a leftist, do you still refer to groups like the PFLP and DFLP as terror groups rather than revolutionary national liberation movements? Off topic, but I've heard you say that more than once.
Well, because it's my view that if you walk into an airport in Europe and just open fire with machine guns on people, that's not in the interest of national liberation for the Palestinian people. Sorry, right. That's just terrorism.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I've had thousands of hours of conversations with my grandfather, who was, really a hero of the French Resistance. And he said, like, the number one thing, when you're in the resistance and you're trying to emancipate the people, is you do not kill innocent people unless it absolutely can't be helped.
That's right.
And if you, because after all, these are the people you're trying to liberate. You can't kill them. You don't go into and that's like the problem with like Al Qaeda or something like that, right?
Exactly. And may I add one other thing, Ted? Phrasmataz says here, this is important because I get this a lot. Question for John: did Brennan play a role in the creation of ISIS? I've heard that he is a practicing Muslim, which I always thought was maybe bogus. Someone says he's a Sufi. WTF? He is a devout practicing Catholic. He goes to St. Herman's in Herndon, Virginia, every single Sunday. He is a devout Catholic. People on the far right have come up with this thing that he converted to Islam and he went to Mecca and he made the Hajj. No, all of it's a lie. I spoke at an event at a bookstore in New York, a month and a half ago. A guy that I know wrote a book about Brennan and asked me to write the foreword. So I did. And then there was this event. And he had some comedian who also fancies himself as a right-wing commentator, sort of MC the thing. And the first thing that the guy said was, John Brennan, who has confessed to converting to radical Islam. It's like, no, what are you talking about? So the first thing I said was, I'm sorry to throw a wrench into this 5 seconds into the start of the event, but John Brennan is not a Muslim. He has never been a Muslim. He's a practicing Catholic. But even if he were a Muslim, who cares?
Yeah, you don't confess.
Listen,
to becoming Muslim. There are are there over a billion? I mean, there are
over a billion.
Over a billion.
The chief of operations in the CIA's counterterrorism center, the guy who killed Osama bin Laden, he's a Muslim. What do people say about that? I worked for that guy for 8 years. He's not just a Muslim, he's a practicing Muslim. Who cares?
Right. Well, I don't know how, the thing is, of course, there are lies, right? And then there's lies that couldn't be true. That's one of them, right? I don't understand how lies that can't be true stick. That part, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Like, it's so outlandish. It's so ridiculous, though.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So let me get back to Brennan for 1 second. Brennan may or may not be prosecuted on this minor contempt of Congress charge. I don't so much care. I want him to be prosecuted on a conspiracy charge because he conspired to deny the American people the right to elect a president.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a major crime.
It was an attempted coup d'etat.
I said that in a podcast. That's exactly what it was, Ted. That was an attempted coup d'etat.
And it's really, truly disgusting.
And incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I don't think you should be able to defend yourself with the lawyerly weasel words like, well, we said it was our considered opinion and, that kind of crap. I mean, they knew what they were doing and what they were saying. They buried all of that. It was like one of those 62-page Apple iOS renewal agreements that nobody reads when they click yes when they do their software update. They knew exactly what they were saying and what they were suggesting. And we know from the internal communications of that group, right, the 51, they were all talking to each other like, hey, Trump, we got to stop Trump no matter what. How can we do that? Hey, will you sign on to this letter? I'll sign on to it. I mean, that's what happened. We all know that's what happened.
Yes. Yes. Hey, Ted, we should also say that the in the Israeli parliament today, the Knesset voted by a vote of 25 to 24 to annex the West Bank. They did this just as Marco Rubio was leaving the country. They did this while J.D. Vance was still in the country. It's an incredibly provocative and dangerous thing to do. Even if they're just playing games, it could change the face of the conflict.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the Israeli parliamentary system is that it's a unicameral system, right? So if a law passes, is this a resolution or a law?
It's a law, but it was passed by committee. So now it goes to the entire 120 member body.
So if that's passed, let's say, and who knows, then if the president were to sign off, then that's it. It becomes law.
That's it. And it's one more step in the direction of Benjamin Netanyahu's greater Israel, which includes the southern third of Lebanon, the western quarter of Syria, a third of Jordan, Gaza, the West Bank, and even a giant chunk of Saudi Arabia and the Sinai Peninsula. And a bit of the
Sinai, right? Like
all of the Sinai.
Yeah. So I mean, part of me, maybe I'm just overly optimistic. I've been guilty of that many times. Part of me thinks I kind of want them to do that because that will finally, once and for all, make Israel dead to everyone, and no one will ever look back. We'll cut them off. And we'll wash our hands of these fucking maniacs, and we'll support the Palestinians.
I would look forward to that day. Yeah.
Do you think I'm being overly optimistic?
No. Okay. No, I don't. This is the thing about the Israelis, and especially about Netanyahu, is they just don't know when to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's their way.
Yeah.
They just go and go and go and go. They're like little Energizer bunnies. It's almost impressive, but it's also stupid.
It is stupid.
You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
That's it.
We're rules to live by. What do you want to talk about next? The ballroom, San Francisco.
Yeah, let's get the ballroom out of the way. I don't know why I'm so angry about this, but you and I were talking about it yesterday. This thing is bigger than the White House. So there are a couple of reasons why I'm angry about this. Number one, he literally tore down the east wing of the White House.
Yeah.
Literally tore it down. It's in ruins, in
with
rubble
no discussion nationally, right? This was never, this isn't something he talked about during the campaign.
No.
Or something that even like a month ago, he didn't like, have his people go out and go on CNN and Fox and say, hey, by the way, these are our plans for the White House. He just did it.
No, he just did it. It's supposed to go through this historical preservation committee and all these different steps. Just tore it down. Tore it down 2 days after saying, we're not going to tear it down. He said, we're not going to touch it, is what he said. And well, it's literally in rubble on the ground now.
Yeah, it literally looks like a fucking dystopian movie where the White House is destroyed.
It's been destroyed.
It's bizarre.
It is.
And also for this purpose, right? Like if you need to massively increase, the square footage on the White House grounds for a ballroom? I mean,
and what he did is he got all these rich campaign donors to pay for it. So there's no taxpayer money that's going to. It's completely privately funded.
But it's still national property, right?
That's the thing. It's national property. Congress never voted to do this. He just did it.
Now, I think about previous controversies, right? I mean, like we've talked about, presidents have added swimming pools and bowling alleys and movie theaters to the White House. And very controversial, the Truman balcony. We take that completely for granted, but it wasn't there until Harry Truman. But, and I still have the button that says that was a pro-Dewey button that says Harry was screwy to build a balcony for Dewey because they thought that Dewey was going to win in 1948. And it's a very collectible button. And the thing is, but it's like sort of, why? But even when you consider that, I know from having read this that Harry Truman went to the American people, had reporters like briefed on exactly what the plans were, why they wanted to do it, why he and Bess Truman thought it was important. There was kind of like an effort at gaining consensus or at least explaining themselves. Or of course, there's the very famous film of Jackie Kennedy giving the White House tour and very beautifully showing her favorite parts, her favorite paintings, and explaining how they were planning to renovate the White House. And like apparently Vice President Nixon it was Ike, right, who had like worn his golf cleats on the floor and like had fucked up all the floors. So she was like, a lot of these floors have to be replaced, and here's where we're going to do it. I mean, it's kind of an opportunity for the president to communicate and sort of and personalize his relationship with the American people. Like, This is my house. I want to do a reno. Listen, I entertain a lot of guests, as you can imagine, from all over the world. I need a big place to do it. Why didn't he do that?
It really is an imperial presidency. Mm-hmm. All the things that Richard Nixon used to fantasize about doing, Trump's actually doing them.
Yeah.
It really is an imperial presidency. What he tore down, we said, was the East Wing. It's the office of the First Lady, mm-hmm. and it's the White House Visitors Center. So if you want to take a White House tour, you go across the street to the Department of Commerce and you get your little ticket. And then you cross the street, you go into the East Wing, and that's where it starts. It's like a little museum. Mm-hmm. Upstairs is the First Lady's office and the Chief of Staff's office and the protocol director's office. And then you enter into the White House itself by just going up this grand staircase. None of that exists anymore. It's laying in chunks of concrete on the ground.
My mother and I did that when I was 15, and my mom was a very, very chatty person, and she talked to one of the doormen, I guess it was, at the White House, and he told her a personal story about Jimmy Carter, that apparently some woman had wandered away from the White House tour and had wandered into the Oval Office.
Wow.
And Jimmy Carter was there, and he was like, come with me, and he like,
I believe that.
And he brought her back to the tour and like showed her a few things. And then people were like, oh my God, you were just with the president?
I believe
she didn't even know who he was.
Oh my God.
He was, and it's so funny. But do you think they're going to get rid of the White House tour? I mean, if there's no White House tour office,
right,
it stands to reason that this might be part of it. And that's part one of my question. Part two is, we haven't seen Melania in ages.
I was thinking about that yesterday.
Could this be a sign of it? Like, he's now got it, drawn a bead on wife number 4.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
Don't
remember
fuck with your wife's office,
Yeah. At the beginning of Trump's first tour, he said that the White House was a shithole. Remember?
Yeah.
He said it was a shithole and it needed to be just revamped from the ground up. Now, Harry Truman did that. You remember through most of the Truman presidency, he and Bess Truman lived across the street at Blair House.
Yeah.
And the White House was stripped down to the studs and just completely
rebuilt.
Gut renoed. I went through the White House, I'm going to say almost a year ago with my sister and her family. And it was a little on the rundown side. So sure, it could use new drapes, some new flooring, a good dusting. But,
do you think it needs to be adapted for, cyber stuff, like, hardwired Ethernet connections and all that kind of thing?
Sure. And I understand it has a very long-standing mouse and rat problem. Long-standing.
That's amazing. Well, then they could take a page. This is where he really should have that meeting in Romania with Putin, because Putin could explain about the official Mausers at the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, where there's a whole, going back to the imperial era, right? There's a giant cadre of cats that wander the Hermitage.
I told you
exactly that problem.
I told you the Greeks don't have this problem because there are cats everywhere. And the Greeks are happy to have them.
I like Trump a lot better, despite all his despotic tendencies, if he had some cats in the White House.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
All right. Well, so here's the thing, right? Does this have any political implications? Are people... the Truman balcony and the renovation, it really was very controversial. A lot of people were very against it, and not just because they didn't like Harry Truman. Is this the kind of thing that, does it have political import, or is it just one of those stories that only affects people who actually go visit the White House or walk by in Washington?
We've heard nothing from the Democrats on this.
Weird.
Nothing. And, we should add too, as part of this ballroom construction, they're paving over Jackie Kennedy's Rose Garden.
Oh no, really?
And so it was torn out day before yesterday.
So the famous Rose Garden, what?
No longer exists.
Wow. Well, there's that famous, I never promised you a rose garden.
Yeah, well, Trump made sure that was true.
Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't that awful?
Yeah, no, it's just weird that like such a wholesale, giant change could just occur with no discussion. Just like, it's easier to, it reminds me of something that happened. You probably remember this in the 1980s. There was I think it was maybe Macklow, but it was some major real estate developer in New York City who basically planned to build a couple of hotels on the site of historic Broadway theaters. And the city had landmarked the theaters and said, you can't tear these down. And so he's just like at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning came in with the wrecking crew and knocked them down anyway without a permit.
Oh my God.
He was in such a hurry that the crew didn't even turn off the gas in the basement. Could have blown up part of Times Square. And, this was a time when Times Square was packed with people at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
People are there now, but it's not the same. So it was just sort of, it reminds me of that kind of, or hell, when they were building Trump Tower, when they did it with illegal immigrants, without filing for all the appropriate paperwork. They tore down a building there that was on the site, didn't get the city permits, no demolition permit. It's just sort of like, we do whatever the fuck we want, and then just like people live with the results afterwards.
Just pay a fine.
Yeah, it's like, that's it. Easier to, that's how it is like in my old stomping grounds in the Hamptons. like all the rich people, they just demolish like dunes, even though you're not allowed to do that because they're like nesting for the plover and stuff like that, and they just pay a fine. It's like it's better to do it that way. They should go to prison.
Yeah, they should.
This is where I kind of like really I do see the advantages of like the Taliban. Like the Taliban had a problem with deforestation, between 96 and 2001 when they were in charge, and they were like, if they caught you cutting down a tree in town, they killed you. And that really, it put a dent in the problem.
Oh my God.
So, all right. Well, so what I do have to say, we do have to talk about the San Francisco situation, which I think is kind of just amazing. So the DA, so basically the Trump administration is about to surge ICE into San Francisco. By the way, they've now been making the busting moves in New York City. They showed up on Canal Street, which is sort of a low discount shopping area in Lower Manhattan, and there's always a lot of people selling counterfeit like Prada bags and stuff like that, or fake Gucci stuff. Anyway, that's always been the case. These days, it's like recent arrivals from Africa seem to have cornered that particular niche.
Yes.
And so they get supplied by the same usual people who supplied their predecessors. Nothing new here at all. Anyway, so the ICE showed up. They just basically arrested and detained everyone with very dark skin, including some U.S. citizens and green card holders, and then eventually let them go. They also arrested people. New Yorkers started throwing things at them and yelling at them and warning when they saw them pull up, saying, "Yo, ICE is here. You got to run away. Go home." And people were arrested for doing that, for impeding, an investigation or an operation. I guess those charges won't stick because ultimately they let those people go. But now they're on their way to San Francisco. It's a very liberal city, very liberal, and to a fault. And the DA there says, we will arrest ICE officers if they show up here and they don't follow California law, which includes having to show their face and presenting ID upon request. Obviously, ICE isn't going to do that, right? So what could this showdown look like, John?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the end, I think the feds are going to do whatever it is they please. I think it's absolutely wonderful that New York is standing up. I hope that Chicago and San Francisco and Portland also stand up. I will say, though, that it was probably a good thing for immigration to start on the Lower East Side that way, because, a lot of research has been done into who they're mostly Nigerian, I think, bootleg sellers, what they're doing. And a lot of them don't even realize that they're working for groups that support terrorism. I remember even 60 Minutes doing a story at least a decade ago, where if you buy from one of these Nigerians down on Canal Street, you buy a purse, you buy a DVD or a CD, it goes to them, from them to their bosses, from their bosses to the big guy, from the big guy to, ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whatever it was, Hezbollah. And so some of that money does really end up going to support terrorism. So it's probably the logical place to start. Scooping up Americans is unacceptable. So I'm glad that New York stood up. But in terms of the planning of the operation, I think immigration did it right by starting there.
Interesting. I would have started in prisons and gotten rid of those people first, but
but that wouldn't sate our desire for revenge.
So true. But so DA Jenkins does not actually think that, say that, she wants San Francisco PD to arrest ICE, which obviously would involve armed conflict in the streets of San Francisco. Yeah. She said instead they would review footage of any beatings if they occur. Can you imagine? This is the world we live in, John.
Just crazy.
They're like, this is the New York Times. local law enforcement could review camera footage of beatings if they occur and try to identify the agent involved. Then she said she would ask a judge to sign a warrant for the agent's arrest and seek to prosecute the agent in court. She said that she has not talked about this with other DAs around the country, but basically they could be sued for battery or excessive force, and basically that's the idea.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't even. I mean, it's so dystopian and bizarre.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You're right. I don't know, man. It is bizarre. And one of the things that's distressing to me is that we're getting silence from Congress. I mean, obviously, Congress isn't even in session.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson was sued day before yesterday by Representative-elect Grijalva from Arizona. He was sued by the Attorney General of Arizona because he refuses to seat her in Congress. Yeah. The Congress isn't in session. The Democrats don't need another member of Congress.
Just to be clear here, many congressmen have been sworn in when Congress was not in session.
Of course
it's not required or necessary.
Yep. Of course they have.
Just to reiterate, I think the Republicans are going to blink here. What do you think?
I think the Republicans are going to blink. We're already the second longest shutdown in American history. We're coming right up on the longest shutdown in American history, which may be like today or tomorrow. It's soon, whatever it is.
It is soon.
People are starting to be increasingly pissed off.
And November 1st is when the open enrollment period for most people who are in the Affordable Care Act get. You got your letter. You showed it yesterday on the air. Washington Post talked about a lady in West Virginia who was told that her premiums were going to go from $300 to $2,400.
Yep.
Those are not going to be reliable Republican voters, I would say.
And there's a question for you, Ted. From Phrasmataz, would you ever vote for Curtis Sliwa?
Would I ever is a big question. I like Curtis Sliwa.
I do too.
I've met him. I've talked to him. I think he's a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard for...
He likes cats.
And we're on Team Cat together. I mean, he's more Team Cat than I am. 11 of them in a one-bedroom apartment. No, I think he's a great person. I think New York City would do well, but unfortunately, his politics are to the right of mine, and he's running as a real Republican, not as a sort of a Mike Bloomberg or Rudy Giuliani in 1993 Republican. So that to me is a huge problem. Not to mention, this is a vote that early voting begins on Saturday, and I'm going to be first in line to vote for Mamdani. I'm very excited. It's very rare for me to be able to be actually excited to vote for someone. Do I think he's going to, drape the city in, it's hammer and sickle bunting? Sadly, no. But it's still, it's going to really, it's an opportunity to send a big message to the system. That's great. Sliwa does not. The problem with Sliwa is if he were elected mayor, it would send a message that, look, New York City has gone to the right. New York City's gone conservative. That's the wrong message.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, what do you make of his announcement yesterday that if elected, he's going to keep the current police commissioner?
Well, they're all saying that, right? I mean, Andrew Cuomo, and before him, Eric Adams, of course, obviously would have. And Mamdani also said that, also Sliwa. Everybody basically, that chick has the most secure job in the United States. She's not going anywhere. Everyone's like, she's doing a great job. You know who begs to differ? Like the citizens of New York City. I mean, it's like where there's no cops, John. I mean, there's no cops directing traffic. There's no cops. Writing tickets. Don't get me wrong. I drive. I'm very happy to be able to double park in front of my house and not have to worry.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's bad. It's causing gridlock. There's places where people really do need to be reined in. there's no cops on the subway at all.
Well, you know what? That surprises me that there's not an independent subway police department.
There was the New York City Transit Police, who, if you ever like, if you're young and you're like, well, what was that like? Watch the old original version of Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
you'll see those guys. They
Loved
look great in their leather jackets and stuff. And they were trained to deal with like chasing suspects into tunnels, how to turn off the power, to the third rail, and rescue people who've fallen on the tracks and all that stuff. It was absolutely, it's a city underground. For people who haven't been to New York City, there's over 400 stations, thousands of miles of track, thousands of cars of rolling stock. It's a 24-hour system. It is a system with its own, it's a city within itself. And it carries over 1 million riders a day. This is a big fucking system. This isn't like the Boston Tea, which is very cute, but it's not like a big fucking system. And so the transit police was folded in to the NYPD by Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor. He was trying to consolidate power because the city of New York has basically 3 loci of political power: Wall Street, real estate, and the cops. And he came from the cops, and he wanted all the cops to be loyal to him. He didn't want this like thing to be a little schmutzy with a sort of semi-independent transit police. Now they're called the NYPD Transit Bureau.
Right.
But it's not the same thing. And the difference, for example, in the 1980s, at night, there were 2 police officers on every train. So if something happened, someone yanks the emergency brake or whatever, bear in mind we did have, and we still have, no comm system. So on most of the cars, right? So there's no panic button like on BART in San Francisco or on the Metro in DC. You can hit a speaker and say, there's a problem, there's a fire, there's a crazy person, whatever. There's no way to communicate with the outside world, and your cell phones do not work between stations. So like that, this all came up in the Danny Penny situation, right?
Right.
You're stuck in there. So having the transit officers was very, very important,
and makes perfect sense.
I want them to come back.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. We have the transit police here in Washington, and they do their jobs. We have a couple of metro stations, for example, Gallery Place, which is in Chinatown. Lots and lots of kids congregate at Gallery Place. Every once in a while, somebody gets stabbed, somebody gets shoved, there's a fight or whatever, and the cops are right there on it. And that's what I want. I want to be able to take the subway safely. I take the subway everywhere.
I loved the transit cops. They used to walk through the cars twirling their nightsticks.
That's funny.
I have a funny story.
Yes.
This one time I get on the C train on Central Park West. I'm alone in the car because it's the 80s and it's like,
right.
It was like after 9 o'clock at night. This naked man gets on and sits right next to me. There's like 65 seats, right? But he sits right next to me. New Yorker is, that like it's going to spook him. It's like dealing with a rabid dog. So you don't move. You don't say anything. You pretend like everything's normal. Because otherwise, if you got up and left, the guy'd be like, What's wrong?
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting there. He, aside from being naked, he's normal. He has his arm like leaning up against his knee. He's just like a bored commuter going somewhere. Transit cop enters the car from the side, twirling his nightstick, almost walks past us, and then stops, backs up, and he's like, "Hey." And the guy ignores him and he pokes him with his nightstick. And he's like, "Forget something?" And the guy goes, "What?" He goes, "Your clothes." And the guy's like, so then the cop tries a different tack and he goes, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Home." And the cop goes, "What's home?" And the guy goes, "My clothes."
Oh my God.
And of course he's like, "Stand up, you put your hands behind your back," of course. I miss the transit cops. I mean, like now, if that happened, there would be no transit cop to make that guy go away.
Yeah. Well, just was it day before yesterday? Somebody like had a baby and abandoned it in the subway, and it had the umbilical cord still attached and everything. Like,
Yeah,
what
that
the
was
fuck is
intense.
that?
I know that corridor. That is a very well-traveled corridor between the West Side IRT and Penn Station proper, which goes to Amtrak
Everywhere.
and New Jersey Transit, LIRR. It's Metro
Yeah.
North. It's crazy, and that it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Unbelievable.
So do we? Robbie had our producer had said he had some questions for us about immigration. So should we?
Sure, we've got a couple minutes. Yeah,
Let's do it. Let's do it. And then we do still have to make some time for these boat attacks, but there's not much to talk about there. But here we go.
This will be spicy. Hi,
Let's
y'all.
hope so. Hey, what's up, Robbie?
No, so I want y'all to change my mind about this. Y'all are both a lot smarter than I am. Y'all are both very educated. Y'all traveled the world. Me, I'm a dumb hick whose family tree goes straight up and has very few limbs. So I want to get y'all's thought process on this. All right. I don't understand. And Ted, I'm going to use your word. You talked about the liberals in San Francisco being a very liberal city. I don't understand why the population there wants to go out of its way to defend people who have no legal right to be there. And here's the preface for my argument. First, as a citizen of the country, the citizen should have the right to decide who gets to come to your country and who doesn't. We never had a referendum about how many people do we want to just allow to come to the country. The government just kind of threw open the gate, let them come in. Immigration has the effect of driving down wages. That's why Republicans like immigration. They want lower wages. Democrats want for the same thing. It's good for the donors, screws over the workers. So, being that I am of the populist right, people's wages to me matter. The value of work matters. That has to mean something. So I don't understand, John, you talked about the problem that Greece is having, where they've kind of hollowed out the middle of the country. People are leaving the country because they can't get work. Mm-hmm. The same thing is happening here. So with that being the situation, why is it that people want to allow a portion of the population to come here that actively hurts the workers of the country? Why don't you want them deported? Why do you want these people here who are actively undermining your ability to, I don't know, have a good paying job or have a house? Explain this to me. Unpack it for me, because I don't get it.
Well, first of all, many of us believe that the law is just simply wrong. It's just wrong. Sure, it's the law, immigration law, just in general, needs to be rewritten, has needed to be rewritten for decades. It's just wrong. Secondly, it's a proven fact that Americans just simply will not accept some of these jobs. They just won't do it no matter what the pay is. They're not going to go in the field for 16 hours a day and pick fruits and vegetables.
I did.
Well, then you're the guy. You're the one guy, because other Americans won't do it.
Well, they would if you pay them, right? I mean, if you're going to pay someone, for example, whenever I worked on the Diamond Dairy Ranch down in Florida, we were paid. Keep in mind, this is in 2010. We were paid $1.75 per pound. You can't live off of that. You can't. And so, if you want to get married like I did and have kids, you've got to actually have wages that can support that. You got to at least pay someone at a minimum at least $18 an hour to even be able to even think about renting a house. Forget about buying.
Let me add something to that point. Then my sister is in the process right now of opening a laundromat. Right, she and her husband have both retired. They decided they're going to open a laundromat. And it's a nice laundromat. It's got a gourmet coffee bar and a play area for kids and TVs all over the place. She has advertised on LinkedIn, Indeed, and Facebook for employees, and she's paying $16 an hour. So she had 16 people scheduled for interviews, right? 12 of them never showed up and never called. And of the 4 who did, 3 of them showed up. 2 were drunk. 1 was practically naked, she said. And then there was 1 retired Navy guy who was so bored in retirement that he just wanted to get out of the house and do something. She hired him on the spot. But people just are not willing to take these jobs, even with good pay. They're just not willing to do it.
Are you sure about the good pay part, John?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if I buy that.
Good pay.
I mean, I just don't think. I mean, I don't think if someone offered, like, say, $40 an hour to pick vegetables, that they would have trouble getting people.
Yeah, but there would be riots in the streets if we had to pay people $40 to pick vegetables, because the end cost would be prohibitive. And then you'd have a whole other look at this show, America's Worst Jobs, right? You know, this show, it's on like the National Geographic Channel or whatever. I watched 1 episode one time, and this guy, his job was to drive this little tiny mini bulldozer underneath chicken cages to clear the shit out. Mm-hmm. And chickens are shitting on him constantly. 8 hours a day, he's just being shat on. Well, the guy was clearly, like, he didn't speak a single word of English. I leapt to the conclusion that he was undocumented.
Probably.
Because regardless of what your pay is, you're going to be shat on day in and day out.
I don't know, but John, people, I don't know what the wages are like now, but like in the 80s, asbestos removal was a very well-paid job, and you could die, right?
Well, also one of the things that I always like to kind of point out to people who are left of me, and for those of you, I mean, I obviously like y'all. I'm working for you for free, so I obviously like y'all.
And you're willing to work for very low wages.
Yeah, y'all, and that's true. I mean, I'm a terrible capitalist. I'm not getting paid a dime by these 2 guys. A lot of these jobs that you're talking about, AI is going to be replacing. They're being automated away. So the question is what do you do with? Let's just say that the number of illegal migrants here is between 40 to 60 million. No one really knows. Let's just cut the difference to say 50. What do you do when those jobs no longer exist? What do you do with those people?
Well, we all are going to have that.
That's going to be a problem.
And then more to the point.
Our biggest problem.
Just let me say this, because I got to get ready to get to the TMI show here in just a second.
And I've got to close this out.
Why is it that the American people, why is it that we don't get a say about who gets to come here and who doesn't? For me, that's the single biggest issue. That is a sovereignty issue.
Honestly think that
no one asked my opinion.
We should get a say on all sorts of things that we don't, like whether the White House has a ballroom that's twice the size of the White House or whatever.
Sure.
I agree with you on that.
White House renovations that don't impact your wages.
By the way, that's a foundational problem with the current American system, is that there's no attempt to get buy-in from the American people on a whole host of issues. Robbie, thanks so much. I know you have to go to TMI. We're this obviously immigration isn't going anyway. I apologize to everybody that we didn't get to the boat attack in the East Pacific, probably against Colombia, most likely. But we can do that tomorrow for sure. So please follow, and share the show. Thank you so much for being here. We're here back Friday, tomorrow, 9 a.m. as we are Monday through Friday every day. Please stay tuned for the TMI show with me, Ted Rall, and Manila Chan. We will be coming up right after this. Take care, and bye-bye. Bye, John. Bye, Robbie.
Bye, guys.